Welcome to episode 7 of What the Observer Sees. Today I'm with Aaron Dason, Mad Act lead, and I have Bob, who's also co-hosting the session today. And we're going to be talking about something very interesting, and it's about youths in Malaysia and how youths learn and retain knowledge, but also how we use gamification and game-based solutions to help drive learning engagement. So maybe before we get into the session, I just want to get you to tell me how the year has been. Like what are some of the challenges that you're dealing with this year? What are some of the opportunities?
All right. Thanks, Arun and Bob, for having me here. I think the year is pretty fast moving, I would say. We feel like we just celebrated New Year and we're almost done with 6 months going into the 7th. And I think what I would say in terms of the year is that it has been a very demanding sort of a year, I would say. Because last year there was the whole confusion of hybrid and physical, especially in the youth space. And this year, everybody is like, hey, we want a physical session. People's motivation is not up there. And those are some of the things that are really, I would say, really testing us to the core to see like, hey, the programs and the interventions we do, is it really attracting youths or not? Is it really impacting them now? Because people are coming in with real problems and they want a real solution in this space. So it's good, it's fun. Every new challenge kind of sparks a new idea, brings us into a new learning curve. But definitely the challenge is something that myself and the team is really excited about.
Okay. And in terms of the youths, how have they been receiving some of your programs, some of your initiatives?
So I think for us, there has been a learning curve, right? So 4 years ago, when we moved into the whole pandemic bit of it, there was the part about how do you make sessions interesting in a YouTube, through your live chat and all of those things. And now when we come back into the physical bit of things, the part of being interactive is something that I think we are constantly finding it challenging. And especially when we say that, hey, there's this program, why don't you come and join? Their first question is, what is it in for me? I'm better off at home. I don't need to think about all of those things because we can't do back what we did before pandemic and say that, okay, pandemic is gone, let's just do this. So I think the question of how are they accepting towards it is that they find great interest or perhaps excitement when we bring in things that are more hands-on, things that are, they get to really experience and make an impact. I think that's something that still drives. And so our programs, when we say that, hey, by doing this, you have helped this community or you have made this much of an impact, that's something that they really get excited. But I think for them, it's no longer about, I want to be here, I want to be there. But the question is, why am I here? Why am I there? So that's something that we feel like the youths today are pretty much, they want to know, they want to be more informed on what is the purpose of this program. Yeah.
And it's an interesting point that you brought up, Aaron, coming back to the whole pre-MCO, and then we go into the pandemic, and then we go into the post-MCO times, right? And as well as how students started learning in their whole physical, then move to hybrid, and then now to God knows what style of learning that they're taking on, right? And I would like to tie it back into the SPM results for 2022. And I'm sure that all of you have heard of the SPM results, right? For our viewers who do not know what SPM is, it is a exam that all high schoolers have to go through in order to graduate and move on to a higher education, maybe college, maybe into university. So what are your thoughts on the SPM results, Aaron?
I think this whole SPM has been like, after the results has been announced, there's been multiple, about how many people actually got A, how many people are not attending school and why people are not attending school. And there are also people saying that, hey, the passing grade has been reduced, to this amount, which is very alarming, which then comes out about statements saying that, hey, the education, the exams itself is so hard for them to actually, kind of sit in and get an A, or maybe even just to get just to pass the exam. So my thoughts coming back into it is that it is a real thing. And even like we have a lot of corporate clients who are actually reaching out to us to say that, hey, can you go back to these schools and say that help to get people motivated to be in school? So here you are talking about, SPM as an exam sitting in. People are even not excited to be in school, to study and all that. So these are like major issues that are happening in Malaysia itself. And then I hear some people say that this is not in Malaysia, even in outside of Malaysia, some people are finding it hard. And you can see this trend where people who are graduated from universities, and there's employers saying that, hey, it's so hard to get them to be on time for work, to turn up for work. So we can see like this whole behavioral change that's happening that needs to be sort of addressed. But it comes back to the bit of, why are they not being in the exam or in school? Are they not
Right.
excited anymore? Why are they not excited about learning? I think that's some things that kind of make me feel like, hey, we got to do something in this space.
Right. I mean, I think that's an interesting point, but more interestingly is why corporates are coming to you to probe into this area. Like, can you just let us know like how those two things are related? Like with some of the challenges that we see in the SPM results, it's quite interesting to hear that corporates are now coming in to step in and try to see how they can help solve the problem. Why do you think that is?
I think ideally, what it comes to when we said that people are not excited about work, I think corporates in Malaysia per se, they are also worried that, hey, if this were to continue, the people that we are going to be hiring are not going to be helping us, or they're not going to be reliable in terms of this work. So that concern is coming, and they say that, hey, rather than us doing our corporate social responsibilities by giving out 10,000 for you to repair these in school and all, they say that, hey, why not you come in and help us to get these students motivated back? Because schools need this help, and they were like, hey, if you can come in and get our students excited and motivated as a third party, that means we are not involved in exam, we are not involved in their daily day, they are very excited, they are on the receiving end. And for the corporate bit, it's like, hey, now I can give differently, I can make a difference differently. And since you have some proven track record where your programs get people excited, why not now you channel into this? And we are slowly embarking into 3 different schools in Klang to look at student motivation, and these are like real cases that we are working on to see. And again, I would not say that we have finished the task and it's completed. It's ongoing, and we are trying, and we are really excited to do this also.
Okay, I mean, it's really interesting that they would invest so much in the grassroots level, from a corporate setting, because traditionally you don't think of corporates stepping into that arena and impacting students at the grassroots level. Usually you see corporates getting involved at the university level, right? Just before they make that switch between education and the corporate world, right? They start to have some influence. But it's good to hear that. I mean, especially in Malaysia, where we need that kind of synergy between the corporate sector and probably our public schooling system.
And I think adding on to that is, it's nice to see corporate doing that, and actually people receiving. But on top of all that we are actually doing is that the whole bit of it is actually creating so much of an excitement, because some students, and you talk about them not being motivated or excited to school, some of the things that they are speaking students is like, hey, I can actually work as a Grab driver, or I can work as. So now when corporates come in and say that, hey, these are the opportunities with us, we are doing this, we are a brand, you build back that excitement, because they don't feel like corporate is far anymore. They feel like, hey, they are just around, they're in school, we know this brand, why not start working towards this as our career?
Oh, okay. Very interesting.
Right. And what are some of the elements that maybe corporate has been asking to implement, or some angles that you thought of that could further increase the motivation of these people, of the youths, like to engage more and more in the learning and the things that you do?
It's very interesting, because when we talk about excitement, excitement simply doesn't mean the word is rah-rah, right? It's not to just go there and get them excited, but it's how do we bring about learning in an exciting way. So what we do is that we focus on what we call as the 4 mastery, which is your personal, how do you set your goal, how do you cast your vision, and we talk about functional, how are you in terms of transferable skills, which is your critical thinking, your creative thinking, and we talk about what we call as the domain function, which is entrepreneurship skills, skills that will bring you to industry, and the leadership bit, how do you communicate. So when client, or perhaps our corporate clients, they come to us, they find this model very interesting for them to say that, hey, can you do something in the schools to create this spark? And that's where they were like, because we have been in the space for some time, we know what are the students' capability. So some of the things that we do, for example, energy organization would say that, hey, can you talk about energy efficiency? Get the students to ideate. You teach them the problem solving, you teach them the ideation bit, but the team that they're doing is based on our organization. So then it makes more sense, because from them, they are the ambassador for this brand, let's say the energy efficiency part. But from our part is, we are now teaching them the skills and these tools. And what's even more I would say nice or beautiful is that these students, when they learn these skills, they can actually apply it into their learning methods. So when we talk about creative thinking, we talk to them about mind mapping as a tool. They're like, hey, I can now study history better. I can study science better because these tools and techniques are very much important, and I can learn how to solve problems using this.
Okay.
So I think that's the approach that we are using on the experience of making things, making learning fun, making learning more engaging, and I think for the better lack of the best word is like, how do we gamify this experience that they don't feel like they're coming for a lecture.
Right.
They are coming in for a session that they are immersed. They are coming in for a session where they feel like, hey, this is like a game. This is like a fun approach. And for them, they see this is an excitement. They come in, and at the end, they feel like, hey, I learned something.
Right.
Yeah. So
And in terms of the retention, right? I think in the end of the day, it comes down to retention, how they apply and retain the knowledge. So the framework that you talk about is quite holistic, right? You take it step by step. So how has the youth embraced that? Have you seen kind of a change to the way they look at learning or the way they look at schooling if they're not even turning up for exams? Has that approach helped the youth?
Okay, cool. Very good question. This is about impact, right? So one of the things that we do is that e-program report, like impact measurement, and we do all of those. But I think for me personally, the one who's on the ground running the show and all that, a very quick example. So Arun, when did you learn about business model canvas?
Probably at the workplace.
At workplace, right?
Yeah, probably.
So some of the kids that we were working, they are in their Form 2s and Form 3s.
Yep.
Okay, these kids they have no access to business model canvas. They are like thinking about, oh, this is science, the 4 P's of business. And when we taught them about business model canvas, and we talk about different ways, and we taught them about customer journey mapping, and these are
Right.
things that even people who are in their 40s, 50s, they're like, what is customer journey?
Yeah.
And we played a game with them, and we said that, hey, this is what PESTLE is. This is what customer journey. What made me, as a trainer or a person on the ground, really excited is like, this guy was like, hey, you know what? Now I know why when I walk into a 7-Eleven or when I walk into McDonald's, why are the brands placed in a certain way?
Sure, yeah.
Why are they located? Who are their suppliers? So they start seeing things differently. And because that's when we managed to break a consumer mindset for them to a business mindset. So they no longer see all this fast food chain or anything that they eat as, I'm a user, I'm going to buy from them. They start seeing that, so who's the person behind this?
Yeah.
Who's the supplier? So why if there's a whole bit of you can't get French fries in McDonald's, the whole concept was, oh, there's not enough supply. But now that they know that, hey, it goes not just supply, there's the political bit of it, there's the economy bit of it, there's the social bit of it, they then realize, and when they tell this to me, for me that's impact.
Yeah.
Because any report, we are going to highlight all this, but when you get the user to suddenly have a aha moment in the session, you feel like, hey, we have done something that is impacting them, and we have made learning so much fun that they've connected to real life. Because I think learning for classroom shouldn't be just learning a theory. It's about how do you apply that back to your home, and that's when your retention of knowledge stays longer.
I think that's a perfect example. So, I mean, knowledge should always be just the ability to connect dots, right? So knowledge for knowledge's sake is purely theoretical, but when you can connect the dots, then you see the connection and you can understand why certain things happen. So very interesting. I mean, it's great to see that impact in real life and in quite an immediate way, right? Because you can relate it back to that experience in a fast food outlet, and you can see that connection. So I think that's very helpful. Yeah.
Would you say that is also the backbone or the very basis of the camps, the youth camps that you do?
I think we are in an approach of a transition. Right. So we have this whole bit of how we run camps before. So as we know, most camps, the focus has been towards coming to a space. I'm confident, I can share. And I'm going to share something that's very personal to me, which happened last year, right? So there's this one camper we shared with another facilitator, which I'm bringing over here, is that the mention about, hey, it's so nice, I can do everything in this camp.
Yeah.
But the moment I step out of this camp, I don't have you as facilitators and all that. And that has been really kind of bugging me per se, or perhaps really making me feel like, hey, we have to really rethink our 5 days camps, our youth camps, because we don't want them to have the good feel good factor for the 5 days, but when you go back to the real world, you back to the normal. And that's where I feel
Right.
like the need of understanding the 4 masteries I mentioned, the workshops, the skills, because now when you teach them a tool,
Yeah.
when they face the problem, they would definitely feel like, hey, I want to work on it. Because and in that particular camp also, I ran a small workshop for problem solving. And it was just a 2-hour session, 1 hour session where they can come in and they can ask any question. And I was quite surprised that quite a number of them turned up. They signed up for this because I was like, why would you come for a boring session, right? It's a problem solving steps. And when I was speaking to them and I started to actually listen to like, hey, what's the problem you want to solve? What's the problem you want to solve? And I put in steps and I said that, see, these steps make sense for you, and you. The person then comes to a conclusion saying that, hey, actually, this is a tool that anytime I face a problem, rather than me hoping or depending, I can actually be I can initiate it myself. I can try solving. So I think that's where it comes to the transition bit, right? So in our camps that we do, where we are trying to go towards, and what we have been trying to do this year is that, we continue the relation part, give them the support, give them the motivation, let them But on top of all of that, when they leave the camp, is there a tool or something that they can bring back to help them with their daily life?
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, so in terms of the approach that you spoke about, I can sense that it's driving deeper retention, right? And I think that that's critical because, yes, when you take them out of a non-simulated kind of environment, they have to be able to overcome certain challenges that they don't necessarily. But in terms of the way you approach learning within these camps, are there any gamification kind of game-based approaches that you've used in the past that you've seen particular success with? Has there been any examples on that?
So I think when we talk about gamification, I've been listening to some of the podcasts that you all have been doing before. So there's a lot of versions of making it gamified, right? So there's the whole bit of, like a player experience or perhaps like a point, like a leaderboard to make them excited. This is something that was mentioned before. So there are two ways that we have been approaching, all right? So one is like a full simulated sort of an experience. So if they are in for the camp for 5 days, they go through an experience as like, say, a change maker. So you are like this agent and you're going to try to solve a problem and you go through. So that's one. And on the way you are learning something. So the other gamified perhaps that we actually been doing is that we give them a course. We say that, hey, you're learning entrepreneurship. You want to make money, right? And they're all very excited when you talk about making money. So, but we say that, hey, in this bit of it, the money that you make is going to be helping a social cause. We create a gamification element saying that the more that you make, the more profit that you're going to be doing. And on top of the more profit that you do, the share to be given to a community, to a shoebox project or a B40 is higher. Then they feel like, hey, here am I not just learning, I'm doing something. I'm going to go out, sell something. But on top of all of that, I'm getting something for myself and I'm giving something to the community. So that then gives them like, it's a very, I would say, a bit of an addictive sort of a thing, and sharing a case study per se. So we had like about 8 groups doing this. And out of 8 groups, one group eventually came to us, and this is right before they make any money, they came to us and they said that, hey, Aaron, whatever money we make, we want it for the cause, for a good cause. Then we realized the elements that we brought in to make the learning different, a bit more gamified, actually captured their emotions. Actually, they were like, hey, I want to do. And a group that made a lot of money then came back to say, there's too much of money for us. Can we increase the initial part, we said that, hey, 10% of your profit is going to be given. They said that, hey, 10% seems to be a bit less. Can we increase this to 40%? So then we see that, hey, things have changed because previously, it would have just been, a leaderboard, you are the winner. But now has been not only that you are winner in the session that you have learned, you can now impact people. So when we bring this sort of an element and you put layer by layer to make things more interesting and fun, the concept of learning then change is they are no longer learning for themselves. They are also learning to make sure that they do well for other people. They're like, hey, I just made a difference in somebody's life.
That's amazing. I mean, that probably is the best way to learn, where you can actually create impact at the end of the day that in a cause that you believe in, right? So you tie it back to that framework where you talk about at the beginning level, the foundation, you talk about like mission and purpose and what's your vision for yourself. So I think it's very well connected. If that is a way we can approach learning even in school, I'm pretty sure those numbers on the SPM results will see a huge change. Hopefully, right? Hopefully, we can really hope. Right,
Okay, that's very interesting as well. How they can take the learnings and then straight away apply it into their own communities. I would guess. And has anyone gotten back to you and say like, hey, Aaron, it's been 5 years, it's been 6 years. I've managed to implement this for my community, and so far the transformation has been really good. And I'm now right now we are in the midst of sending like more people, getting more in touch with you guys. In the past 5 to 6 years, with the consideration of there's COVID, there's all these changes, right? Have you seen an increase in terms of people wanting to send more and more of their people from their community into all these camps?
To be honest, yes, we have this whole camp brand that we call as Spark, right? So Spark is together with our partner, which is ECM Libra, and we work with different partners to make the camp successful. And we have been running it for 9 to 10 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a long run, right? And just about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we had a catch up, and we were talking about the same thing, the SPM results, and everybody is a bit alarmed to see that, hey, so many people did not turn up for exam, right? So, and then we were like, hey, we have been doing this, sometimes we overcomplicate learning sometimes. We bring in this kids from different groups of people like B40, and we say that, hey, why not you do this social work? Why not you do this UNSDG? And we were doing so much of that, right? And that's something that I wanted to speak about. When we talk about gamification, making things, when we make things too complicated, we realize that actually this group of people might not need all this.
Right.
Sometimes all they need is a bit more relational, a bit more looking, a bit of an exposure. And that's where this client was like, hey, Aaron, I want to do this again this year. But you know what? Let's do something a bit different. Let's go back to the roots. Let's get them to go and visit people in trouble. Let's get them to go and have a conversation with these people, because all your tools are helpful for them to ideate and to make sense, but maybe putting in big terms like, even for example, like UNSDG and all might complicate things. Why not just get them to go and see what's the pain point?
Right.
Get these people to see that, hey, I'm not the only one in trouble. There are also other people in trouble.
Right.
And how could we all coexist as Malaysians is to help one another. So there has been people coming in, and there's been change also. The request changes. Some will say that, hey, we need more skills driven because this community needs this. Some say that, hey, let's do more of a relational basis. So demand is there, request has been there. I think it goes back to how do we place a certain thing? How do we come up with a solution? How do we customize based on not what I want, not what the sponsor wants, actually what does this community need?
And that's a beautiful message. And I believe so, Arun, one fine day that you might want to send your kid to one of these camps.
Sure.
And I'm sure Arun is looking forward to all these changes. Right?
He's coming off the right age for these things.
It's slowly getting there, right? So I believe, with all the sharing, Aaron, so what is the one message that you like to send out, or you like to disclaim or tell the people regarding how do we approach the youth in their learning post MCO times, post pandemic times, right? What is the one key takeaway in your opinion?
I think when we talk about key opinion, we have been talking a lot about masteries. We're talking about skills, about learning. I think one important component, and this doesn't matter who you are, right? And one common thing we see across all youth is this word called relation with parents.
Right.
Okay, because we can do all the workshops, all the skills that we are looking to do, but one thing that we realize is whenever we go into this place, they easily accept us, they really adapt us, and they want us to be with them because we are spending that time with them. So I think the one message that I would say is to the teachers, to the parents, to everybody. I know you all are doing a lot of things, but I think what is more important is at the end of the day, or at the end of your class, at the end of your sessions, all the things that you're doing, take that time to pause.
Right.
Speak to them, ask how are they doing, see if there's anything that's not being addressed, because all the teaching that we do is not going to be helpful if we do not know mentally how are they feeling, how are they going forward, how are they facing the challenges. So take the time, pause, speak to them, get to know them. Yeah. So I think that would be I know we spoke a lot of different things, but I'm going to finish this over here is because all these are important, but we are a true believer that, you need to spend time with the kids. You need to spend time with the youths. All of us are busy talking about SPM results, posting about it, but how many of us actually say that I need to go and volunteer, I need to help these people? A lot of organizations are doing with us, but the question is, are you guys doing it?